I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome everyone back to another episode of the Dispatches from Somewhere AfterBuzz TV After Show. Is that the line? It's elsewhere? Okay, I guess we didn't get the part. Octavio Spencer is going to step in for me, everyone. Welcome to the Dispatches from Elsewhere AfterBuzz TV After Show. I am your host, Kevin Allen, and we are here to discuss this latest episode entitled Lee, because we're going to get to meet Lee. But not just her, we're also going to talk with my amazing team, that team as I call them, Shyntel to Aguila,
Hi, I'm so excited to talk about tonight's episode.
Benjamin Schnau.
I'm here again to support Peter to get it together. You got this.
Support him to get it together. I love it. And of course, we couldn't do the show without Sanaa Moore.
Oh, I thank you. And I'm totally rooting for my guy, Fredwynn. I'm so glad you guys got to see a different side of him this episode.
Oh, we got to see a lot of great sides from all of our characters. First and foremost, Lee, as the episode is titled. We're going to get to discuss this brand new character and this brand new perspective that we finally have about the game. We're also going to get to know life after the game, first with Peter and Simone, and then later with Fredwynn and Janice. But before we dive into that, our news, our special segment, and all of our predictions, I want to hear everyone's thoughts on this episode because this was very much a different tone than we've been feeling throughout the entire season. So, Ben, what'd you think?
Yeah, I definitely like this episode very much because I'm all about characters, right? And I thought we definitely saw a lot more about every individual character. And as Santa already mentioned, like Fredwynn, I really loved at some point that he basically opened up. I think that was beautiful to see that he basically takes his hand even. And I was like, wow, he's changing right now. So I really love that. And even that the episode is called Lee, we saw some of her, but not really that much, right? So I was kind of surprised.
I actually was too on that. I definitely want to talk about her, but she clearly wasn't the meat of the episode, oddly enough. Sanaa, what did you think?
I definitely kind of like this episode because we got to see a different side of all the characters, especially like with Fredwynn and with Janice too. It broke my heart that her husband died. Like, and the fact that she had to sign the papers of do not resuscitate and just let him just pass on and just go because she didn't want him to suffer. That was big of her to really look beyond herself. So I, kind of feel for Janice. I want to give her a hug and bake her some cookies.
Absolutely. So
Send some over.
All right.
So I also want to take this moment to thank all of the fans who've been following the show and following our after show, and you guys are on the comments. I've been crazy busy with after shows this past couple weeks, so I haven't got to continue my conversations, but I really look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. And on that note, Sanaa is going to tell me your thoughts live. So get on that chat. Let us know what you think. Shyntel, let me hear your initial impressions after watching this episode.
I really enjoyed this episode. I love that, it's after the game's over, or so we think. There's nothing else going on, and they go back to their normal lives, and you kind of see like how difficult it is to step out of that game. You see the transition with Simone and Peter, and how they try to work on this so-called relationship. And then the scene with Janice, very touching scene. Actually, it was so close to home for me because seeing her having to let her husband go and how close she was to him just reminds me so much of my grandmother and my grandfather passing. So I was like, just a touching moment. And then, of course, Fredwynn. You see him develop even more, and it's a different side of Fredwynn, and you really start loving him as a person, even though he's a little like. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Said this, I shouldn't be laughing. I love you said like we start loving him as a person because up until then he really wasn't acting like one.
No, okay, he's a little cuckoo. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he's a little strange, but like I said, he starts letting down those walls, and I think that moment he has with Janice in the hospital, even that moment where she steps out and he's talking to her husband, like it's just a different side of him that you haven't really seen, and I really loved that.
Still quintessentially Fredwynn. I,
Yes.
for one, am very excited to talk about him, but I would like to start at the very top of this episode because I loved that we came in on an audition for the role of Octavio Coleman Esquire.
First of all, I thought
I
my TV screen was frozen. I thought
yes,
I literally
yeah.
kept pressing because I was like, I saw the time go, and I'm like, okay, it's
Oh
like
man,
9, 10 seconds. I said, is this my Wi-Fi or something? Do I need to call the company? Like, what's going on?
they got you again. They did it again.
They
I
really
know, they're
did.
so good at that. So
I was
good.
I was pleased as punch. I'm like, oh my god, they're doing it again. They just have a guy staring at the screen with a solid color background, different color this time.
Hmm.
Um, and we get to it's an audition. He says somewhere instead of elsewhere, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that's when
That's what
illusion
got
shattered.
you.
Yep.
I loved that. I loved it. I felt bad for his twin who was like, you
I
blew it for
know.
us, dog. Um,
Also, shout out to Mr. Spins. He said in the chat, my heart goes out to Janice in this episode. It was so heartbreaking to see her in this episode, but luckily Fredwynn read the situation and was there for Janice to ease the situation, which is totally true.
Mhm.
And Sheldon also commented and said, saddest episode of television, 3 forms of endings: end of game, end of relationship, and end of life. Wow, that was pretty
Yeah.
heavy, Sheldon.
let's
That's deep.
wait on that, guys.
That's deep. That's deep. there.
I really do appreciate. No, they're absolutely right. The Spins and Sheldon are absolutely right and perfect on the ball. But okay, I want to have a little fun to start. So let's jump back into that because before this episode got to be as tonally different as it was, it started off repeating the opening scene, so to speak. Octavio Coleman, even though he has been ousted now as a fictionalized character played by an actor, he's still our narrator, and he comes in. And like my first thought was, this guy walking like a boss, improvising a monologue in front of all his competition. What a jerk. But no, he's still the narrator for us, the audience.
Yeah.
Right.
And I honestly, I stopped paying attention to what he was saying because I was so taken in when the Chucks walked in and started doing their Chucks thing behind him. But to me, it set up a thing about this episode that while we are now technically out of the game, all of this stuff has been brought to light. Octavio's not a real person. The characters or the players were just players of an experience. Uh, there was this theme, I think, of kind of everyone coming back to where they began. So the Chuck Storp revisited being Octavio for us, the viewer, and our characters uh, kind of returned back to where they came from at some point. Uh, do you understand what I'm saying by this?
Yes.
Yeah, but what's your question?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really. I'm just wondering if you guys noticed this as well. I felt like our
Right.
4 players, who I'm going to refer to as that team,
Hmm.
because that's how Lee described them.
Yeah.
They became better people through this experience. We see them in the diner,
Right.
and they've all grown and become more complete individuals. And whatever was holding them back in life, they have overcome. That diner scene, you see an example from each one of them behaving differently. Peter had the confidence to just ask Simone out at random. Simone was accepting of his affection and agreed to put herself out on a limb by going out on a date. Janice took the phone call, and you guys have already mentioned what she's been going through and how tough she's grown through this. And then Fredwynn immediately turned to focus on her and kind of read what her needs were as a friend. So they all became more complete people, which was the point of this experience, as we learned through Lee.
Right. But I also, the thing is, like, talking about Lee and talking about the whole setup, I also had a feeling that the way how I understood it is that the whole game wasn't even planned like that. It feels like that some scenarios were not even planned out by Lee. I think she kind of took over or something, and she kind of mentioned something like that from Clara or something. But I think how I understood it, some scenarios were completely just random in a way. Some things with the milkman or something, I guess, was maybe like planned, that they get down to the basement and see all those people. But the rest feels a little bit like, hey, maybe the apartment and where they came to was already like that anyway.
Yeah, she destroyed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's how so I'm not even sure if it's really like a whole game just created for these 4 characters.
I totally get what you're saying. Because also I kind of got confused, and maybe you guys can help me in the chat.
Yeah.
I believe Lee said something like she, Clara was an artist, and she, Lee felt bad that she kind of like had Clara, like sell her business and kind of like, fall out of love with her art and stuff. So she felt bad, so she created the game.
Right.
Is that kind of what she was saying? Okay, and then I just didn't understand why she felt bad that she had to start the game. Like, how was the game going? Was the game supposed to give, Clara life again? Like, what? I just don't understand her correlation for that.
Yeah, me
Shyntel, do
too.
you have
I
any
still have a
ideas?
problem. I still have a problem to understand what the real relationship between Lee and Clara actually is, to be honest.
Shyntel, do you have any ideas on that?
I mean, I agree with you guys because I was a little lost there. I wasn't sure the connection, but then I thought, okay, sort of like what Sanaa said, Clara was inspired by art. She loved painting. She loved expressing that and showing it to people. And then she sold that, whatever her business, whatever it may be, to Lee. And I think after that, Lee felt bad for kind of taking it away from her. And so that's why she was like, let me reinvent this game to show Clara like the beauty in her art again and how inspiring it could be. But again, still I'm kind of there with you guys too. I wasn't quite sure the exact connection, and maybe they'll explain that more in the next episode.
Right.
But that's kind of how I read it
So was
between Clara and Lee.
So do you think the dragon, like that painting was Clara, like all the different stops where they've been, and then there was paintings and visual art? Could that possibly been hers?
So, but like her apartment, like the apartment set me off because when Lee went into the apartment, like down in the basement, you see that window mural, but you don't see anybody in it. I don't know if you guys like caught that.
Yeah.
And the room was a mess and everything like that. So I think that some murals, like the waterfall one, were originally Clara's and like the dragon, but there were other pieces that Lee added to it to inspire Clara again, to let her know, like, kind of reinforce her and say, hey, it wasn't a bad decision, you turning over your business.
I think all of the artwork that was uncovered as being Clara's artwork, the stuff that she had done throughout Philadelphia, just as an act of outsider art or street art, was genuinely Clara. And I think Clara's story and Lee's story were kind of revealed to us when Clara gave the origins that they had found in her home. But rather than Lee collecting her to introduce to Octavio, picture it as Lee just finds her and brings her up to her own office, and thus creates the character of Octavio to represent Lee's life before she had the revelation that whatever she was doing was what she wanted to do. So Clara is an artist who wants to do something big. Unfortunately, she dies of cancer at 20, like really young. So I think Lee kind of maybe shell-shocked by this and feeling bad that she basically bought this girl's talent, didn't put it to the use that she had promised the girl would get to do, and create this big vision, kind of like decided to take up Clara's cause. And for what personal turmoil brought her to feel that she was responsible for that, we have yet to see. We will see that. But this game was absolutely Lee doing Clara's unfinished work.
Funny that we always talk about Clara in the past, and of course we talked about that she dies because of cancer and stuff like that, but I can still get over it that I have a feeling, because especially when I saw the treats as the ashes right out of a sudden, I was like, wait a minute. So I still have a feeling, honestly, I'm just predicting already a little bit, but I have a feeling that this story that she died is all made up. I think she is still alive.
What?
I'm just
Okay,
saying.
that's totally valid. I mean,
Because why would you find trees? Why? I mean, that has to mean something. Why don't you find the ashes or whatever? Why do you find like? I don't get that part. You know, that was
because
foreshadowing almost for me.
I mean, it honestly, it could be that she went missing, and so this was like in her will or something, or like there's 1,000
Yeah.
explanations because Clara was such a creative and spontaneous person that it could be anything. It could be something nefarious. It could be something whimsical because that's Clara. She keeps you on your toes.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Like kind of going off of what you're saying, Ben, what if she like kind of did that to get away from Lee? Like, what if she found out, what kind of person Lee is? Because Lee was
Yeah.
not just a good girl, okay?
That's right.
She was kind of evil. So what if she did that as a diversion to like, get
Right.
Lee off of her back and she really is alive?
I'm actually on your page. I feel like Clara set that all up to just make
She didn't
everyone
want to be
believe
a
that
part
she's
of the
dead.
game anymore.
Yeah, she just wanted to escape somehow, and the easiest way to escape from something is just make yourself look that you're
faking
dead.
that's what I love about this show is it's
Season
one
2.
mystery after the other. Yeah,
Boom!
exactly. This could easily be season 2. But
Season 2.
before we get involved in
got
that
this.
mystery, let's recap. There was definitely a lot of revelations on the big question we've been asking all season. Is this real? Is it a game? Is it a production? What's happening here? So we finally get to see behind the curtain. They definitely peel it back. And it was so much fun for me to see the other side. I love seeing the active collaboration and the production side of things and them having to think on the fly. That's very much an ARG kind of thing where if your players decide this is how they want to play the game, you kind of just gotta run with it and support that.
Yeah, they went rogue, definitely. So,
Well, and it was things like it started off with things like, oh, hey, we can make this a richer experience by not using plants. This team is so invested that we can use them. So like, let's cancel
Right.
the audience plant. Let's go with Granny. That's what an ARG is for. You live for that kind of stuff. But then it got to the point where these guys went so rogue. They were called that
Right.
team, and they just had to like to the point where she's destroying her own furniture and
yeah,
home just to keep the game
the game
going.
alive.
Yeah,
Oh man, that
it feels
was
pretty much
awesome.
like it feels pretty much when I saw that like behind the curtain scenarios, I definitely felt like, wow, it looks a little bit like the Truman Show with Jim Carrey. Truman was just doing his thing, living his life, and the people from the outside were pretty much reacting to his actions. So that's exactly how I felt when I was watching that.
Yeah,
Same thing.
I was gonna say there was a moment though, like when she was, in the producers kind of area, in the control room, and they're overlooking at the audience, and she's sitting there, and you can kind of tell she's like, kind of clenching her teeth, like, "Come on, Janice, like,
Exactly.
I need you to like step forward." And for a minute there, I was like, "Oh man, what if Janice didn't? Like, what if Janice didn't step up? Would
Right.
Octavio have just pulled her out of the crowd anyway?" Like, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's very interesting. And I think Lee did. I mean,
it's the
for
magic
her
of
being
live
the
theater.
architect, yeah, for her being the architect, she really like went along with the role and like we said, going as far as demolishing your apartment to make it look like I don't know what, a robbery or whatever
She
kind of scene.
was just as
Honestly,
committed as they were. Sorry, yes, Sana.
I was gonna say, honestly, the entire time, I don't know about you guys, but all I could think about is the 7 years of bad luck she's gonna get for breaking a mirror. Anytime you break a mirror, it's just 7 years of bad luck. So that's
I
the
don't think
only thing
she's
I can
had
think
good
of.
luck before that, so she probably just doesn't mind another, 7 years tacking on top of it.
She
So don't even worry
she
about
held
it.
that bat. She held that bat. She hesitated. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna make this so much worse for myself."
Right.
But
Yeah.
she was that committed. Like Octavio broke character, in my opinion, at the finale, and I was disappointed. But the architect Lee, she never gave up. She was as invested as anyone could be in this experience to the point where, as far as I know, it's still going. Like she gave Janice that slip and she told them to go to the museum. So now our characters are at a funeral, or sorry, a cemetery while a funeral is happening, which is the name for a group of goth kids, by the way. And they're breaking into a mausoleum as if it's part of this quest,
Yeah.
uncovering more clues. and it kind of is and it kind of isn't. So the game didn't end for them, so she kept it going for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's awesome. What do
Yeah,
y'all
that
think?
which brings me back to, okay, how much really was it a game, and how much was it really like kind of scenarios that was almost built by the team itself. The team kind of almost created the game themselves by just having Lee sometimes trying to get them back into order and just trying to lead them the right way. But I think the team probably did it all themselves without even realizing this. That's what I think.
So you're saying they created the game as they went?
Pretty much, because as you know, everyone has different characters, and everyone was kind of breaking out at some point and was doing something, going this direction because they had a feeling about something. And I think all these different characters played perfectly together to
So
create this kind of game, what it's all about.
So Ben, you had the theory early on in the season that this game was created for the four of them. And I said, I think
Yeah.
it's just a whole group and they're just going rogue, that they're having to adjust. I think we were both right. They clearly created this
Yes.
whole game for lots of people who had sticks and pinatas, but that team did their own thing. So a separate game was made for them that had a little bit of overlap. So
So do
now they're
you
at the
think?
diner and they've grown as people. And like I said, they are this where they used to be, but now they're more complete. So Peter and Simone are now on a date, and it's super awkward and beautiful and sweet, and they're having a great time. But like I was mentioning earlier, they kind of retreat back to who they used to be.
Yeah.
Peter starts to become a little insecure about his lack of world experience, and Simone retreats back into her insecurities. Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
some
she
thoughts here.
totally. Yeah, Simone really, she was kind of irritating me a little bit because she wasn't really giving Peter, she was just jumping the gun and just assuming, even though that does happen a lot of times, um, within that community of, will Peter really, like her because she is different. She's transgender. And so, that is a lot for him to take on and for it, being his first.
I think
And
it was
so,
more about that he wasn't able to deal with the hardships of the rest of the world had for
yeah,
her, that she lived in a different reality than he
yeah,
But
did.
see, I think it was selfish of Simone, and I'm sorry, Simone,
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
mean to
saying.
interrupt you. I think it's selfish of her because she didn't even
Yes.
give Peter the
A
opportunity.
chance.
Yeah, she didn't even give him a chance. She just automatically assumed, oh, you're not going to be able to handle this. And then when he goes and asks her, because he's so literal, he's like, well, how long do you think it's going to take? And he's like, seriously, really wants to try to be with her. She can't even give him direct answers, and she just goes and says, oh, a year. And I feel like you could totally read Peter's mind that he was going to do everything that it takes to understand what it's like to date, someone,
Right.
and then come back in a year and be like, okay, I'm ready, like here,
Right.
because
So
he's so
And
say
literal.
this.
and
Yeah.
honestly, it was just like, she mentioned like things like, because she is transgender. And then she also mentioned that because he doesn't know pie or cake, like who can make that decision? Because they're both good, girl.
But it's
So
exactly, it's not an important decision. Like
Yeah,
it's
it doesn't
not.
matter to him.
And so like for her, I was just getting very upset with her because, she wasn't giving him give Peter the chance. And if he messes up and you don't like him or he's not doing something right, then that's a reason. But I think her own insecurities that she has or from her past relationships, I think were like kind of, pouring out, and she was kind of like being selfish in terms of like trying to predict something, like because you can kind of predict different things in the game and you can kind of make it the way you want to.
Right.
With her, she was trying to do the same thing with Peter. And it's just like, he asked you out on a date, girl. He sung to you like a fool with this voice he
He's
has.
grown, I think, more than anybody else, to the point where when they were in the restaurant, he was so close to capturing the
Yeah.
point of the game
Yeah.
in that, because he was like, all these charming people are being so charming and I'm not. And it was like, dude, you craft your own world. Like the reason everything looks boring now in comparison is because you're not looking at all these people and assuming they're part of a grander experience that you can make up in your mind.
Yeah.
And then they left the artificial atmosphere of the restaurant, went out on the street and
Right.
created their own beautiful until it went south experience.
Yeah.
And that's the point of the game. And they were this close to capturing it.
Right.
Meanwhile, Fredwynn and Janice totally got the other point of the game, which is to open up and make connections. So,
which was very interesting to me because I basically expected as soon as they realized, okay, the game is over, like a human being behavior. Oh my God, what do we do now with our lives? The game is over. And we spent so much time the last couple of days and weeks to just work on that game. And now it's just gone. And now we don't know what to do. I think that's very much a human being behavior that you just go back to normal, go back to past, because now you just lost such an important thing in life. But out of a sudden, surprisingly, Janice and Fredwynn, I think they just kept going what they developed already. And I feel like Peter and Simone got back to where they came from, now knowing, oh my God, the game is over. Fuck, we can't really, that's not us anymore. Now, how can we do that? So I think that was interesting to see the split between those two teams out of the sudden. So very exciting.
Well, I was going to say, I actually liked the show, how they did that, though. How they split, they showed two people progressing and two people digressing,
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
It makes either point that much richer. Like we notice it more.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Going to the chat.
Yes, please.
Oh, going to the chat really quick. Shout out to Nick Daly. He said, it's like she wanted a fully formed person, and she then admitted that it takes a lifetime. Which is it, Simone? She did that because she was afraid.
So when they meet back up at the cemetery at the end of the episode, like they're real friends now, but for better and for worse. They're real friends in the sense that they've also have baggage and there's some awkward moments. I love that Fredwynn is now a hugger. Like he's that open with them, and he understands like this is how they show affection, and I can do things how they do. Shout out real quick to Andre Benjamin for an amazing performance in this hospital scene with Janice. He almost had me in tears because you could see for the first time he wanted to do something and didn't know how to do it.
Right.
And rather than he verbalized it a little bit, but it was mostly just the way he was standing. Fredwynn has grown so much, and I'm so happy.
You're so right. I really have to point that out. Andre 3000. I'm so intrigued by his acting. So I was really surprised that he hasn't done a lot more stuff in the last couple of years. So he's a really great natural actor. I really like that about him.
Yeah.
So really good stuff.
But Fredwynn is still very true to himself and breaking into a mausoleum in the middle of the night to unravel more clues. So I'm really looking forward to what happens in the next episode.
But I was going to say, I'm glad he did that. So,
Oh, yeah. No, keep it going. Keep it going.
Yes.
I mistakenly said this was going to be the last episode. And while it feels like it, I'm so glad it's not. So we got just a little bit of time for news and special segments. So Ben, was there any news that you had to share with us?
Yeah, I definitely have to point that out very quickly. I mean, Ryan, our producer in the back, if you can pull that up right now, what I sent you. It's just so funny to me talking about Richard E. Grant, who plays Octavio, right? And guys, if you have a chance, please check his Twitter account because he posted a picture with him. Now, watch this. With a picture of him standing in front of Barbara Streisand's house, taking a picture, taking a selfie. Now, wait up. Watch out. I'm not finished yet. It's going to go crazy. He sent her a letter when he was 14 years old. So this guy's 62 now. He sent Barbara Streisand a letter saying how much he loves her as an artist, right? And now, after all those years, he got back to the house, standing in front of it, making a picture, posting that on Twitter. And now, you know what? An hour later, Barbara Streisand responds and says, "Dear Richard, what a wonderful letter you wrote me when you were 14. And look at you now. You're terrific in your latest movie." And I was like, wow, this is crazy. This guy loves this guy or her so much for so long. And now the crazy part is he even has a sculpture in his yard of Barbara Streisand, people.
Oh, no, that's a little creepy.
I'm not kidding you. I know.
Maybe that is why he got the role as Octavio, because he is
but that's true
dead
love,
on.
People, true love, right? So I also want to have a statue of Michael Jackson. I would do that.
Well, you know what? Shyntel actually has a fun special segment for you, Ben. Everyone's going to pick a character, and we're going to answer a question as that character. Am I correct?
Yes,
Shyntel?
yes. The whole theme, obviously, of the show is, I am Simone or I am Peter, and you are them. So why not get to know them really well and pretend to be any one of these characters, and let's ask you some questions. So we went around. We just want to ask you guys, which character, if you could choose, who would you pick real quick?
I related to Peter a lot in this episode, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay, and Ben?
Octavio. Oh yeah.
Okay, so first
My man.
question, very fun and easy. You know, if you were those characters, what would be your favorite food?
Well, if as Fredwynn, I would love to eat wheat thins with bananas.
I love it. I love it. That's a total Fredwynn meal.
Wheat thins with bananas.
I feel like we see him eating Chinese a lot, especially in this episode. Like it goes back to his old habits of just eating takeout. I'm gonna go with chicken fingers and fries, like the easiest, most basic comfort food.
Mhm.
But he doesn't do it a lot because then his hands get messy and it's too much.
I love
So he
that.
doesn't treat himself to his favorite
True.
food.
I mean, I'm Octavio, right? I mean, what do I eat? There's just one thing that I'm eating. Octavio.
You eat life.
Oh,
I mean, I
Octavio.
got money, people. I got money. Okay.
I
Whatever.
eat life and beauty.
And champagne. Of course.
Love it. All right. Well, here's one that's a little, it's going to require a little more thought. What would be your favorite childhood memory?
Child's what?
Ooh.
Childhood memory.
Oh
Your
goodness.
favorite childhood memory.
I mean, honestly, I can say as an Octavio, that's because the person I am today, I was mobbed in my whole childhood. I think I was the guy who was always kind of beaten down. So I think
Oh,
I just have
no.
to get revenge on people. That's it.
That would be your favorite, though, remembering that you were mocked?
I don't have any favorite moments of my childhood. It was a pain, but I got to
was-
do what I got to do. All right.
I get it. I get it. Living a life with an identical twin, that has to be hard. So
Hell yeah. Oh my God. I
completely
don't like this guy.
understandable.
I don't like this guy at all.
I would say for Fredwynn, I would say my favorite childhood memory would be playing Guess Who, as well as doing
That's
a
perfect.
5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle and completing it all by myself in 2 hours.
I can believe that because Fredwynn is an achiever. He's an accomplisher, and
You need
of course
2
he's up
hours.
there.
Wow. I expected you to do it in 1. Come on.
My favorite childhood memory is when I got a bike. I got a bike. It was for Christmas, and I didn't ride it a lot, and it was stolen right before my birthday. But
It's brilliant, man.
This
I love
is
it.
it made me
Peter.
happy.
Jason Siegel, if you need a stand-in, please. Kevin is here.
I'm extremely tall.
That was spot on, Peter.
Thank you.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Love it.
Thank
Well, I
you.
hope you guys all had fun. You guys should totally try that game at home. Ask yourself, who would you be from Dispatches from Elsewhere? And then, play around some fun
Yeah.
questions.
And all these characters are really great. And while we're putting our heads in these characters, what do you guys think is going to happen with next episode? 'Cause all bets are off.
I mean, I said it already.
AfterBuzz
I said it already, to be honest. I think Miss C is coming back. Cool.
Okay. I would love to see that.
You know what? I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon because I don't think Clara is dead either, and I think they're gonna go searching for her, and I think they're gonna find her.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I
I
can't
don't
wait to see
think
who she
I'm
is.
gonna jump on that bandwagon too, and I also think Simone is gonna try to come back to Peter.
That's
I-
the one.
I could see that. Yeah, she's gonna
really
make a
hope so.
comeback. I hope so, but it's gonna have to be a grand gesture though, because you know what? She broke his heart. She didn't believe in him. That's what's upsetting.
It's odd to predict the show because it really does feel like this was the season 1 finale. And these characters they've gone through an arc and grown as people, but then kind of fell back, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. They've now been presented with a whole new mystery. This seems very much like a season 2 setup. Like, we're going to solve a different mystery with the same characters, but they're kind of different now. But we're still in season 1. And golly, I can't figure it out, guys. I'm so excited to see where this goes. I would love to see if Clara's so Fredwynn's going to bring the news that Clara might still be alive and basically put everything back up on the pin board and rally the whole team back. at the diner with summarization waitress to go like, okay, so what's the newest gossip on what you guys are doing now? It very well could just be, I don't want to say more of the same, but a richer version of what we've been seeing this entire season.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Totally
We'll just
agree.
have to wait and
That would-
see.
Exactly.
Until
Good
then,
stuff.
guys, keep getting involved in the chats. I'm definitely going to jump on. I'm going to do it right after this because I miss talking with everybody. And so look for me on YouTube at Kevin Allen Tube, Instagram at Kevin Allen Graham, and Twitter at Kevin Allen Says. Shyntel, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shyntel, Shyntel with the letter D.
And for me, you can follow me on Instagram at @I am_Sana, SANA _, and on Twitter you can follow me at @I am_Sana.
Ben.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter now at Benjamin Schnau, SCHNAU. And we're also going to do the show on Thursday. Devs, check it out, 6 p.m. guys.
We guys are all going to be back next week. We hope you will be there for another Dispatches from Elsewhere AfterBuzz TV after show. Until then, stay vigilant. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.